Hi everyone, and welcome to our further food for thought. I am trying to pick up a little bit on what I spoke about on Sunday as we looked in the second part of our series on God is. And I talked about how God is unchanging. And the fact that at the moment, in the midst of, we live in a world that is changing so much in so many different ways, has so many uncertainties within it and around it. And yet we have this amazing hope. That God is the unchanging one, and that He's the one we should be looking to in the midst of everything else that may be changing. The world is constantly changing, but our God is unchanging, and that's an amazing truth to be able to build our lives on at this time. And of course, facing uncertainty in this world is not unique to us in this season, in our circumstances. Throughout the Bible, we read of men and women who face the same whiplash of changes in all sorts of different ways. Moses went from living in Pharaoh's palace to being a murderer on the run to leading God's people out of Egypt. What a roller coaster that was. David was anointed by Samuel to be the eventual king of Israel, and yet he was forced at one point to pretend he was insane because he was afraid of being killed by the king of Gath. Jesus' disciples followed him around for 3 years, and then they had to figure out what life would look like after Jesus was killed and rose again. And many of them actually themselves ended up dying for their faith. So what we're facing and some of the challenges we're facing are in many ways probably quite a small beer compared to what many others have faced. And all sorts of people in the Bible have gone through very similar scenarios, but have found the constant has been the unchanging God. The truth is that God's essence is unchangeable. He is immortal, Romans 1:23. He is everlasting, Psalm 93 verse 2. And he's the eternal King, Jeremiah 10:10. God has always existed and will exist forever. And God always has been and always will be the sovereign King of the universe. God is holy, and his character never changes. We talked on Sunday about how the writer of the Hebrews says Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And A.W. Pink makes this comment about that verse and about who God is. He says, "He cannot change for the better, for he is already perfect. He cannot change for the... Sorry, let me do that again. A.W. Pink says, he cannot change for the better, for he is already perfect. And being perfect, he cannot change for the worse." You may remember the hymn, Immortal, Invisible, God Only Wise. There's a line in that says this, says, "We blossom and flourish as leaves on the tree, and wither and perish, but naught changeth thee." And that's the truth. Not only does God not change, but actually his word doesn't change either. And we can build our lives on who he is and what he has said. Psalm 119 verse 89 says, "Forever, O Lord, your word is firmly fixed in the heavens." And in Isaiah 40 verse 8 it says, "The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God stands forever." Jesus himself said, "Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away." And as we think about the unchanging nature of who God is and the unchanging eternity of his word, I want to suggest that we do three things. And as life groups, you maybe do three things. So here's the first one. First thing is to read Matthew 7:47 to 27. Then discuss how you can ensure you're building your lives on him and his word. It would be great to be able to talk together. What does it look like to personally make sure that you're building your life on a foundation that when the storm comes won't be shaken? Secondly, to read Hebrews 10:23 to 25. And as you read those verses, then take some time to discuss how can we hold on to the hope that we profess. That in the midst of everything else that's changing, how do we make sure we're well rooted into him and we hold on to that hope? And in particular, how can we encourage one another in this season and spur one another on? It's a strange season, but what practical things can we do to encourage one another and spur one another on? And then the final thing is, and the one that will probably take most time for you as a life group this week, but I'd love you to take some time this week to do this, is to between you write a psalm. Maybe each write 2 or 3 verses that reflect on the changing nature of our world, your life, our circumstances, etc., and also reflect on the unchanging nature of our God. I trust that as you do that, you will find that brings you life, and you'll find you're able to support one another better as a life group as well. God bless.